Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Dave's Top 3,000 Songs of the Rock Era. Today I'm up to song number 2254, and that one is Dance, 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 subtitled Yowsah, Yowsah, Yowsah by Chic. This one came out in 1978. Here's a picture of the single, and was also released on Chic's debut album from the previous year, 1977, just called Chic. Here's a picture of the group Chic around the time they recorded in 1977. I'll get into them on the song. First, I want to feature a sample of it and react to it. So here it goes. Go back to the record here. Okay, that's a sample of Dance, Dance, Dance by Chic. Yowza, Yowza, Yowza subtitle. Pretty catchy tune. I mean, a pretty typical disco song, I'd say. Disco, I don't know how many guys remember the disco craze, but there was disco all over the place. I think starting around 1978, disco just dominated the musical world for a couple of years, 78, 79, I'd say. Um, I liked it at first, but then it grew on me very quickly. I think by 79, I really didn't care much for disco. I've mentioned that a couple times in some of these videos. I know that a lot of people love disco, and I've upset some people by saying I don't really like it. It's okay. It's good to dance to, but it's pretty mindless music, in my opinion, especially songs like this Dance, Dance, Dance. I mean, really no substance to it. I mean, yeah, you can groove to it. Maybe I should say something about the subtitle Yowza, Yowza, Yowza. You might wonder where that came from. I just looked this up today. Apparently, this was a popular expression in the 1920s, and it was started by a very famous radio personality. He was also a jazz musician. This guy here, Ben Burney. I guess in the 1920s he coined Yowza, Yowza, Yowza. He might have also coined some other 20s expressions like 23 skidoo. I don't know. But, I used to hear people say Yowza in the late 70s when I was in high school. I guess this song, what happened was it kind of got revived in 1969. This is another thing I just learned. There was a movie that came out in 1969 called They Shoot Horses, Don't They? And you can see it has a big disco ball picture. And I always thought these balls were called disco balls. But my mom told me, when disco was popular in the late 70s, she said she remembered these balls. I guess swing parties in the 30s and 40s. So I guess they weren't just invented for disco, even though I thought at the time they were, because they had in all the discos, and you didn't see them much before disco was popular. Um, but I guess the movie They Shoot Horses, Don't They? I never saw that movie, but it was about a dance marathon during the 1930s, during the Depression. And I guess the movie was so popular that I think one of the expressions they used in the movie was yowza, yowza, yowza. And I think it caught on in part because of the movie. But I don't remember people saying yowza in the early 70s. I don't know. I think it was mainly Chic that kind of revived that phrase. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. Now I'm going to talk about the group Chic. They were a really big group for a few years. They were formed in New York City in 1972. Like a lot of other groups, they had several incarnations. They were first together from 1972 to 1983, and then they They got back together from 1990 to 1992, and for a third time in 1996, and they're still together today apparently. Although they have mostly new members now, I think. And their founding members were Nile Rodgers and Bernie Edwards, and they met as session musicians, I think, in 1970, and they formed a couple groups. First, they formed a group called the Boys, and then they changed their name to the Big Apple Band. And later, they joined another dance band, I guess, called New York City. New York City had a hit called "I'm Doing Fine Now." Pretty good song. It's not on my list, though. I think that was an oversight on my part. But anyway, they joined up with them, and then they had an image. They wanted to have sort of a glamorous image. I guess they were kind of influenced by glam rock groups like Roxy Music. They were a British glam rock group in the mid '70s, also by Kiss. Um, so anyway, and now I'll just go through their hits. So they didn't have too many hits, but they had a few really big ones because they were a big disco band. So the first hit was the one I'm preaching today, Dance, 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 Yowza, Yowza, Yowza. That one went to number 6. They followed that up with Everybody Dance, which went to number 38. And then they had their first number 1, a big, huge disco hit called The Freak. You guys have probably heard that one. That one is coming up on my list. A few of these are. Then they had another song called I Want Your Love, which went to number 7. And then in 1979, they had their second and final number 1, a song called Good Times. And then they followed that up with My Forbidden Lover, which went to number 43. In 1980, they had a song called Rebels Are We, which went to number 61. Later that year, they had I guess, a two-sided hit, Real People and Ship Off the Old Block. Together, that went to number 79. Finally, in 1980, they had a song called Soup for One that went to number 80. So those were the hits for Chic. Like I said, not a lot of hits, but they were really big for a couple years, during the height of the disco era. And I guess that completes my feature on Dance, 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 Yowza, Yowza, Yowza by Chic. So, anyway, thank you guys for watching. There's a little disco thank you. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.